Hey everyone, and welcome to Talking Elite. I'm your host Connor. Adam could not make it tonight. He is having some stuff going on tonight. But yes, I'm going to be hosting Talking Elite tonight. I'm with my other host, guest, we want to call it, for tonight. Danny, thanks for being on.
I'm good, Connor. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Uh,
Okay. Badgers lost yesterday. Yes. Packers won. Ew. Go Bears. So you can see we got the Bears here. We're ready. We want to be, and we want the Packers to lose next week.
yeah, I was watching one of the other games today, the Titans and the Jets today. Uh, the Jets won that barely. Uh, Yeah. Tonight's topic for Talking Elite will be our wrestling news stories. So, if you can tell by the thumbnail, it's going to be a controversial one, I guess.
Hmm.
CM Punk and the Elite, that comes off as controversial.
Oh, God,
Uh,
yes.
and there's a lot of other things we'll cover in this wrestling news stories. And it also includes journalists and news outlets of wrestling. But first, Adam always starts off with the weekend wrestling, I guess. So, what did you think about I guess since it's AEW related, what did you think about Dynamite from this past Wednesday?
So it was an interesting follow up show. Forgive me, I've been on cold meds again since yesterday. The perils of working with 2 year olds and kids in general. But it was an interesting um, show that for some reason didn't really give it gave you some of the follow up towards all in, but then it also planted seeds, I feel like, for like the next pay-per-view, which remind me, Connor, what is the next one after this? It's in October.
I believe it's Wrestle Dream, October.
Yeah, Russell, and that's is that this month or that's October?
I believe October.
Yeah, okay, that's right. Okay, I had to stop and think which my weeks are all mixed up now that school started. But no, it was just an interesting, I feel like, follow-up show that addressed things but didn't really address things. We didn't have Swerve. We obviously didn't have Hangman. We had your favorite, which is kind of like an algebra problem. Why
Yeah.
is she paired with Mox? I don't know. But this is gonna get interesting. And when I was watching a couple weeks ago, we were watching Dynamite, and my husband goes, I go, oh, that's Marina Shafir. I go, Connor doesn't like her. And all he said was, she doesn't have a personality. Now I understand why he doesn't like her. And that's all he said. And I was laughing.
Nobody.
Um, yeah, other interesting, I think, things just Raw, okay, cool. Raw was interesting. SmackDown, Return of Roman Reigns. We had that great segment that had Jade and Bianca with Naya. I always call her Nia. Sorry, Naya and Tiffy, which I'm really starting to appreciate Tiffy as a heel. She plays that role so well, and she kind of reminds me of like a younger version of Trish Stratus.
Yeah, I can see that. Um, yeah, I thought Dynamite was okay. Uh, I don't like their like when they have a pay per view, then the next week they don't. It, they're like they've always been like they haven't always been like this. Uh, But as of last year, they've been doing this where after the pay per views, the fallout's terrible, the matches don't make sense, stories
Mhm.
drag out. They're bringing in new stories people don't want to see, and they continue stories that people could care less about.
Right.
Uh, One of the main things in this episode was, on Rampage a few weeks ago, they had the Rampage Royal, and Darby Allin won the Battle Royal, whatever you want to call it, and he gets the title shot at Grand Slam for the AEW World Championship. Danielson defeated Jack Perry at All Out, and he successfully retained. And then it was going to be Danielson and Darby. I mean, that was what it was supposed to be. But then we hear on Dynamite. Well, if you've seen All Out, John Moxley suffocated Danielson, and
Right.
they turned on Danielson. We didn't get any follow up on that at all with
No.
Yuta. Uh, but Moxley comes out. He's been calling out Darby for weeks for nobody knows why. But now
Mhm.
we know why he wants his title shot that he won at the Rampage Royal. But then he says Danielson's not cleared, he's not going to be wrestling. And then they make it the match of Darby and Moxley for a Grand Slam. then, then Nigel comes out and then challenges Danielson to a match, and then it's already confirmed. Yeah, it's
Right.
gonna be Danielson, and so it just didn't make sense. If I don't feel like Danielson should have been even mentioned tonight. Probably they should have. I don't know. It feels like AEW did not plan that out well. Like they had a plan, and then they just changed their plan altogether. Like they don't have a long term plan for stories. Like WWE knows what they're going to do next year, probably.
Right.
AEW doesn't know what they're going to do next week. Yeah, Raw was pretty good this week. Who else? Oh, Bret Hart was on there. I thought that was pretty
Mhm.
cool to see Bret. He
Yeah,
kept it.
I really like that segment, and I really enjoyed seeing him. I also enjoyed seeing Sammy out there, and we're waiting for our bucket list next year is going to be definitely the Rumble. So we're waiting when tickets go on sale for the Rumble, which is in Indianapolis, and then we're going to All In next year.
Yeah,
That's our other goal is to go to Texas. But yeah, that was a fun segment. I really liked seeing the Hitman, and I like Sammy. They finally gave Sammy a bit of a style, so now he looks not what did I see? Somebody had posted in a group that he looked like a homeless man on the street who wanted to wrestle or something. But I like Sammy. I like Sammy as a face, but I like him as a heel as well. So that was a really good segment. And then the Roman Cody segment with the bloodline. The only question I have, Connor, is when are we going to get that USO reunion and OG bloodline versus new bloodline?
yeah, that's a lot of Survivor Series is what everyone's talking about.
Yeah.
Uh, this has been talked about at the beginning of this year. Not the beginning of this year, after WrestleMania, I would say. This is when this has been talking about when Solo took over the bloodline, made his own new bloodline.
Mhm.
The debuts of Jacob and the Tongas. They turned on Paul Heyman, turned on Jimmy Uso. I don't know when Jimmy Uso is coming back at this
Yeah,
point.
I have no idea either.
Like they've had so many opportunities to do it.
Uh-huh.
SummerSlam, and Roman on SmackDown, this past Friday, and he just never comes back. So
Mhm.
and Jey Uso is going for Intercontinental Championship on Raw. So I don't think he's going to win that, Jey Uso.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Triple H did say that there was going to be some trades happen eventually with the brand. So maybe Jey Uso is involved with the trade to SmackDown. But I hope that the way they play it is Roman Reigns tries to recruit Jey Uso
Right.
because Jey Uso left on his own, like he quit, and then he showed up on Raw. It was later announced it was a trade with Jey Uso and Kevin Owens. Uh, but personally, if I was booking it for Survivor Series, I would like to see The Rock involved. Uh, Maybe at Bad Blood, Roman Reigns beats Solo, and Solo has to acknowledge Roman. Then it's the actual OG bloodline: Roman, the Usos, Solo. I don't know. Maybe you could throw Sammy in there, but Jacob Fatu and them, they're not going to acknowledge Roman Reigns.
Right.
So then they have a new leader, The Rock. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of different ways you can go in that. Bad Blood, we got Roman and Cody versus Solo and Jacob. I thought that was pretty interesting that we're gonna have Cody and Roman team up. They it kind of reminds me when John Cena and The Rock teamed up in
Mhm.
2012 or 13, I believe that was. But yeah, I really hope that Jimmy Uso comes back pretty soon. Uh, and they signed the third member of the third brother of the Tongas, Hikuleu. He's been in AEW some. He's been in New Japan, TNA. Apparently his name is going to be Tala. See if I can get this right. Tala Tonga. I believe that's going to be his name, Tala Tonga.
We've seen him. I'm trying to think, and he's been in AEW and he's been on Dynamite.
Yeah, he went against Lance Archer one time in 2021 for the
Oh, I think I do remember him now.
Haku came out. Like that's actually his dad. Like that's all their
Yeah.
dad. And then he came out and yeah, he's been in TNA. He's always been pretty good at. Like when I've seen, he's really tall.
Right.
I've always enjoyed him. And he signed, so it's just a matter of when. Like they had Jacob Fatu signed for months, and they just plan out when they're going to debut certain people. But yeah, that was pretty much the weekend wrestling review. Uh, yeah, moving on to our topic tonight. The topic is wrestling news stories. Uh, there's been a lot of stories in wrestling
Hmm.
across wrestling history.
Yes.
Nowadays, you see it all the time because either sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. There's at least one reporter I think everyone can agree upon that is not credible anymore, or probably never has been. But there's a lot of wrestling stories that break out today. Uh, what is some of the stories today, or at least in this generation, that stuck out to you?
Well, the biggest one that stuck out, obviously, and I was thinking about you last weekend when I was in Chicago, is the CM Punk getting fired from AEW, which of course we know happened a year ago at All Out. We were walking around the city of Chicago, and the United Center. If you guys ever get to Chicago for a pay per view, wonderful place to go, very easy parking, and the United Center is on Damon and Madison, so it's like literally like right off of 290 if you're coming inbound, uh, depending which direction you're heading. And I'm walking around downtown Chicago, got my signs, and I'm in the Bull. There's a Bulls Blackhawks pro shop that's adjacent to the arena. So I'm walking around looking for souvenirs, and one of the guys saw my sign, and I had one that had the what was it? Something about Punk ratings, Punk draw, Punk Chicago. Then the other side, I took the Chicago flag and put Punk's face in the stars, and I did his pipe bomb. I did a Ring of Honor, a pipe bomb. I did another one, the Wolverine, and then I did the AEW look. And one of the guys was like, "You didn't hear what happened to Punk?" And I was like, "No," because mind you, we had like a 35, 40-minute drive from the suburb into the city. And I looked and I go, "Oh my God, Punk was fired from AEW." I go, "This has got to be a joke." And this was the night of Collision. So when they held the Collision taping on Saturday and the pay-per-view Sunday, I walk in with this big sign. Nobody said a word, but the interesting thing was that supposedly AEW was confiscating any signs that were pertaining to Punk, which I initially thought this was a joke. I thought, oh, he's going to come back. It's fine. Everything's fine. No, this was serious. And if Tony Khan had actually been a leader and had said, hey, I understand you guys don't like him, but we have to have you guys work together for the benefit of the company, Punk would not be where he is today. And I just noticed that Deshaun posted in the chat. I was just looking right at this, Connor, when he said TK messed up with Punk. Yeah, Deshaun, I think he did.
Yep.
I think he messed up because, well, it doesn't help that Connor and I are both Punk fans. I just think that what happened was the Bucks thought they could work with him when he came. They were just like, oh, that's going to take away our shine. That's going to take over the focus away from us. So then you start the smear campaign to get under Punk's skin. And then next thing you know, we have this big old thing. We've got the media scrum from 2022 when he said they couldn't manage a target. And then we've got last year, we've got the backstage fight before All In, and then Punk's fired.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. I watched Collision just for the opening moments. I wanted to see what they would do.
Yeah.
And looking back on that, Tony made a fool out of himself.
He really did.
He said that production people's lives were in danger. All these people's lives were in danger. And then you put the footage out. None of that stuff happened.
No.
Like nobody's life was in danger. Like that was like a high school little scramble fight. Like that wasn't like when you say that, people's lives were in danger. I think that there's gonna be blood everywhere. There's gonna be like a pretty big fight. But no, like he fired him for really nothing, really.
Right.
But it's just what they want. It's what the Young Bucks want, and
yeah,
it doesn't matter what anyone else wants. Even though Tony Khan's the boss, he doesn't get to make that decision for whatever reason.
Right. And I was sitting there, and I remember where we were sitting. We had okay seats for Collision. Like we were sitting where we could see the ring and the screen, and we could actually see the entranceway. And The United Center, obviously, if anyone's been there, it's like a 3-level thing, and we were actually sitting over one of the like exit halls for you to get from like lower level seating out to the main concourse. And he comes out before Collision and gives the speech, and it was like I was there. I heard it live, and I said to my husband, I go, he's lying. There was just something off about the whole thing. And I had even said, I said, Tony Khan did fear for his life. He feared his life because he didn't want to upset Cucamonga. He didn't want to upset the Bucks. So what better way to keep them happy by firing the guy that intimidates them. And that's Punk. I mean that. And if you stop and think, Connor, think about if Tony Khan would have said, okay, you know what? You guys are talking about him. We can't have this. If this happens again, you're suspended. Okay, fine. But remember when Punk wanted to have the meeting and Punk said, and Omega wanted to meet with Punk too, because he wanted to work with them. And the Bucks were like, no, we don't want to work with you. We don't have to, et cetera, so forth. Imagine if Tony Khan would have said, you guys either show up to this meeting and work with him or you're fired. Think about the storyline we would have gotten out of that.
Yeah, like the Elite story that we got was really something that we could have gotten.
Right.
The Elite EVP story could have been with Punk and FTR instead of what we got. Like that story's dead now. Like that.
Right.
And beating up Tony Khan like that's all dead. But with Punk, that would have probably made a lot of headlines because it's real stuff. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not like so. Like I always bring up Edge and Matt Hardy. That feud. They both it was real life stuff, but they created the best. Like they surpassed the world title scene on Raw. Like they had the better ratings out of the world title scene just because it was more real, it was more investing. But with Tony, I really think he did fear for his life because I doubt he's been in many. He obviously he doesn't like confrontation. He doesn't want to deal with any of it. He wants the AEW disciplinary committee, whoever that's made up of. He wants them to handle it. He doesn't want anything to do with confrontation. He just wants to be a fan, be friends with all these wrestlers, and do little or nothing boss-wise. That's really what that's what he does. But that probably will be the biggest story of this whole entire decade. Or maybe it is Vince McMahon. I don't know. Maybe it is the Vince stuff. Because that was pretty shocking that he's not in charge of WWE now. It's Triple H. But I think that story with CM Punk and the Elite will probably always be probably one of the reasons that if AEW ever goes under, that will probably be one of the points that everyone points to. WCW, there's a lot of points people poke fingers at, but thinking AEW can narrow it down to one singular moment, unfortunately.
Right. And somebody had posted, they made a comment, Jack Perry was quoted as saying something, I don't remember what it was, and somebody had responded to that by saying, well, Tony Khan chose Jack Perry over his biggest draw, and that was the final nail in the coffin.
Yeah, I really think that I really think Punk could have still been in AEW right now, even with the fight. I just feel like Punk didn't want to be there. Like he made that pretty clear. After dealing with if you look at Punk's face from AEW All In 2023 and look at his face when he was at Survivor Series, it's night and day. He was obviously a lot stressed in AEW, especially when he came back in Collision. He looked very, I wouldn't say he wasn't happy to be there because at a lot of the shows, he was happy to be there with the crowd and for Collision. And I think he liked doing what he could with Collision. He doesn't have to deal with any drama. He doesn't have to. Everyone that on Collision it felt like it run smoothly. It run better when he was in charge than what it is now.
Right.
But I heard Tony's comments I don't know when it was, maybe a few weeks ago, that Collision runs more smoothly now than it did a year ago. But it's I don't know. I don't know what he's watching, or if he thinks that's good. But obviously, the attendance shows that Punk's Collision did a lot better. But yeah, that will be one of the talking points for AEW forever, probably. I
Mhm.
don't think AEW will ever recover from that.
No, and I agree with you too. I wanted to circle back what you said, just about his facials, and you could just tell when somebody's in a toxic environment. And I remember when my nephew worked at this restaurant when he was in college. My sisters and I, and one of my nephews, younger ones, went to go see him at work. And we are sitting there, and Jen's my sister, and she goes, "You look like something's bothering you." I'm like, "No, I'm fine." She's like, "No, you're lying to me." Sure enough, it was the environment. I was at a preschool at that point, and she like figured it out. And then, ironically, a week later, I ended up leaving. So I just was like, I'm done, because I couldn't deal with one of the directors. And when you sit there and you look at Punk back when he debuted, and that was in August 2021 when he debuted on Rampage, you could see the light in his eyes. He was
Yeah,
excited to be back. But then the more you saw him in AEW, there was just something different about him. Like he was there, but he was stressed, but you couldn't put your finger on. Now we see the stress. It was the gossipy little backyard beauty queens, because they were running to Uncle Dave, or they were running to Alvarez, or they were saying this or saying that, or like, hey, to him, to get to upset him. Oh, that's so funny. Oh, he's like, they were mocking him when he would get upset. And when you're in that type of environment, Connor, and I've actually taught in those environments, it's like you basically take everything in, and then by this time you're just like, and you just can't take it anymore. And that's what happened with Punk. Well, then we were deciding last year, do we go to Survivor Series or do we go to All Out? Because the tickets were on sale, at virtually like within a week. We decided All Out because we felt like, the Survivor Series tickets were going to be impossible to get. I'm sitting here in my sister's living room over Thanksgiving, and sure enough, I'm like, Punk's back. The light in his eyes was there. He looked like he was so happy. And it almost to him, like him being in AEW by his facials, never existed. Like he was never in AEW for almost 2 years.
I think when he won the world title from Hangman, that one Dynamite he injured his foot, and he had that speech on Rampage. When he came back off of that injury, and he him in the Moxley feud, it was not like that's when it really started. You could tell, but I'd imagine that this has been going on forever. Probably right when he got there, uh, but it just escalated and escalated and built
Mm-hmm.
up and built up. No one's in charge. No one's handling
Right.
anything, and then it built up to what it was. Uh, but I don't know. I think we even still see it today. Like there's MJF and Britt Baker.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like there's been multiple fights in that company. There's a lot of drama right now that they probably don't want getting out. Uh, but besides the Punk and Elite story, what is the most controversial story of this decade, I guess, or in entire wrestling to you?
Oh, controversy. I'm gonna say the Vince thing. That because that just came out, Connor. That came out of like left field. That came out of like, you're turning out of a park, and I hate to use this analogy, but you're turning right out of like a parking lot into a busy, like, our driveway onto a busy road, and that came like a car just like this. Nobody saw this coming. And as a woman, I feel like it was just a very sad to see that Vince had these demands on his female employees to keep their job, and the sexual allegations and just the other stuff going around. And you have to wonder, how much did Shane know? How much did Trips know? Of course, being Triple H Trips, how much did Trips know? What did Stephanie know? What did Linda know? And then you've got Ashley Massaro, God bless her soul, she could have been one of these victims. I read somewhere that she was very distraught working in WWE. The same thing went for Caitlyn was another one. But again, how many of these superstars were, past and present that are still, with us? And for, for example, for Ashley Massaro's case, was she one of the victims? Like, what would, if she were still alive, what would she be telling the media?
Yeah, I connected a lot of dots. I could be right. I'm right about one thing with Jake Hager and his wife. Even though it's none of my business, I just connected dots a lot. Linda McMahon was on Donald Trump's cabinet. She left. Right
Right.
around that time was when they got divorced. That's when everything happened. Shane McMahon comes back to WWE. He sabotages everything. He comes in, tries to destroy. Like, you remember that? Like, he came back and he tried to just disrupt everything because he wanted to get back at his dad for whatever that went down. And then at the same time, the allegations came out, and then both Triple H and Stephanie McMahon voted him not come back.
Right.
And then everything just blew up from there. But I think around when she left Donald Trump's cabinet, that's when it probably all started. But we just didn't know anything because she wouldn't publicly say why she left his cabinet. She just said family issues. So, of course, always she didn't want that getting out because at the time no one had known that. And if she would have said something, that probably would have, he probably would have been on it earlier. I wish they would have. I hate to say this, but I wish this was out a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Not just because WWE would have been great years ago, but just because of some of the victims and what it led to. Maybe we would have still had Ashley with us today.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of lives could have changed if it would have came out sooner. And Brock Lesnar is tied into that somehow. I wouldn't be surprised if there's other wrestlers involved with that. I have a weird theory that maybe someone that isn't with WWE anymore, who recently was involved in that, because some people Triple H doesn't book anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think Triple H may not want to book certain people because they were tied to other certain things.
Who are your names? Who are you thinking?
I'll just give their initials BL.
Okay.
They're not with they recently their contract expired.
Okay.
And they always talk highly of Vince McMahon. They even said that Vince McMahon understood them more.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I could be entirely wrong, but I've been right about a lot of things, and sometimes for the good or worse. But I don't know. I feel like there is some more wrestlers besides Brock Lesnar involved in that. I would hope it would not be people like John Cena and Randy Orton. I would hope not, but
yeah. Orton, I feel like is too much of a family guy. I watched his documentary and the way he met his current wife was just so stinking cute. How her kids were WWE fans and they would watch it and they would say, "Mom, your boyfriend's on," and she just happened to have front row and she caught his eye and they ended up like going out, I think to IHOP or something and talking that they like for a couple hours. I had to watch it. It was so stinking cute. I feel like now that he's matured, he's too much of a family guy. Cena, I think, has got too much class for something like that. But the name that I'm thinking, well, and I'll just say Rolex wearing, limousine riding. That's all I'm gonna say. I would doubt now, not to knock him, but I wouldn't doubt that he was mixed up in it.
Oh yeah, because
given the what was it, the plane ride from hell, which as I was watching that, I'm just like visualizing this Connor like in my head, like all of this insanity. I probably would have been yelling at somebody and like if someone were approaching me like that, I probably would have clocked somebody, guaranteed.
Everyone lost their job except him.
Pretty much.
And Vince was on the plane.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything. Like, he was just sitting back there and he was hearing all this. And I wonder what they were thinking.
Yeah, I wonder that too. That's when you want to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, but I'm curious to see what turns out with Brock Lesnar because his contract expires pretty soon. He only signed a 1 year deal last year or something. So I'm curious to see what comes out of that because that case is far from over.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it'll take for something to be made or whatever, but there is a Vince McMahon documentary coming out pretty soon on Netflix.
I was just going to say that. I know because my husband had asked me because we're looking forward to watching the Aaron Hernandez one, which is out. I think the Aaron Hernandez one is out, I believe, Monday. I think Monday or Wednesday. I have to look. And because he just asked me, he's like, "Is that out yet?" Because we're streamers, and he goes, "Do we get Hulu?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we get," or not Hulu, FX. And I was like, "Yeah, we get FX." And because I looked, and then he's like, "Well, when is the Vince McMahon one coming out?" And I think that's out later this month. So that's definitely on our list. And that you're right, it's going to be interesting to see. But then the other name that I had seen, excuse me, that had floated around with this was Matt Riddle,
Yeah,
because Matt Riddle divorced his wife to marry some sort of porn star.
yeah. He got fired. Triple H was around.
Yeah.
Uh, I just have a hunch that there's some wrestlers that he doesn't want to book anymore. And no, it's not AJ Styles. I don't think AJ Styles would do something like that.
No.
Because he is on the house show still.
Yeah.
Some other people that have not been used are not on the house shows. They're not on anything. And some have their contracts have expired and not been renewed. They don't want to talk to him anymore. So I don't know. I don't know. I think maybe Bruce Pritchard. I don't know. Ronda Rousey talked about that if he's still there, then Vince McMahon still has somewhat power in the company, which he's been there from I won't say from the very beginning, but he's been there for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
So there's got to be some people that were involved in that are still there. But for Triple H and Stephanie to vote him out of the company, I think they probably knew a lot of this, but Vince comes off as the type of person that if you do something, that he's gonna try to make your life a living hell. Like not even just a character.
Yeah.
Like I bet he's in shambles that he's no longer running WWE, but it's actually doing better without him. I don't know. I feel like Vince McMahon won't go down without the last laugh. I don't know.
No.
Maybe he'll drag everyone down with him. But as we move on, the most controversial story for me. There's been a lot in wrestling history. This is really it is a story, but not really within or again maybe it can be the Chris Benoit stuff.
Oh my God, yes.
That all spiraled when Eddie Guerrero passed away, and 2 years later, he passes away. I don't know. I would have liked to have seen Chris Benoit wrestle in person because I watched a lot of his matches, and he was one of the best wrestlers of all time.
He really was.
And it's hard to believe that he was going to go against CM Punk. Like that was supposed to be his next match, and then the match never happened. That probably will be one of the darkest days of wrestling because at first everyone thought that's when they killed him, which I still do think.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a conspiracy theory of what really happened. No one knows. I don't think anyone will ever know what happened. Everyone accused Kevin Sullivan of being involved in that. If he was, he carried it to his grave.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think anyone will actually ever know what really happened, even though they said what they think happened, like really, like police and everything. I really don't know exactly what happened and what led to it. Yeah, for me, that was even though I wasn't even alive for it. Just hearing about it years later, and the Dark Side of the Ring episode about it, and wrestlers' interviews about it, like after that day forward, they never talked about it again.
Yeah.
Like, Vince never talked about it. Nobody talks about it. Like it's just like it happened, but we just went under the rug and no one talks about it.
Yeah. No, my grandmother always said, and I remember watching Kevin Sullivan with the Varsity Club. And if you guys who are watching, go on Peacock and scroll all the way down, and you're going to see old like programming, might be under old school, and you'll see WCW on Saturday night with David Crockett and a young Tony Schiavone. And Kevin Sullivan had the Varsity Club, which was Mike Rotunda and Barry Win. No, Mike Rotunda and who Dan Spivey, I think it was, before Spivey became one of the skyscrapers. And my grandmother used to say that Kevin Sullivan, there was just something about him, his eyes, that was just like hard to look at. Like there was just something off about him. We don't know what it was. And I had heard about the conspiracy theory that, Kevin Sullivan most likely did it. Again, that's going to be something that goes to our grave. For me, that thing happened on around my birthday because my birthday is June 22nd. So, and I think, and I'm always going to remember that birthday as me turning on Raw and like there's a tribute to Chris Benoit. I go, okay, Chris Benoit, did something amazing. Okay, but what? Chris Benoit passed away. Wait, what? And then story started revealing itself and then new things came out. And when I was in abnormal psych in college, because when you get into abnormal psych, you're going to study more of like your dementia, your anxiety, your depression, bipolar, stuff like that. You're going to study more of the mental illnesses. And I brought Chris Benoit up to my psych professor, and she said, yeah, that's a real possibility that actually happened because it deteriorates your brain. When you're in dementia, you basically, think that someone's attacking you, even though they're really not. Maybe he felt like he was being personally attacked. We'll never know, but that had to be probably the darkest day of pro wrestling. If
Yeah,
nothing else, it was that right there.
yeah. As David said, CTE. Like it was examined. I watched this whole documentary about it. That his brain was from an 80-year-old,
Yeah.
and he took a lot. His finisher was the flying headbutt. Nobody uses it. At least in
Uh-huh.
well, Chad Gable does use it, and Brian Danielson used it. But the way Benoit used it was a lot different from what they did. He took a lot of headshots.
He did.
Uh, there was this one on SmackDown. It was he had a match against Booker T. Then he did a suicide dive outside the ring, and golly, it's like he almost blew his head off with that. Yeah, he had a lot of ladder matches, a lot of he did flying headbutts off
Yeah.
ladders and stuff. A lot of headshots, and that's what a lot of people here recently with AEW, the unprotected chair shots. Even if it is gimmicked, you can still get hurt with that.
Yeah.
I don't know if Benoit's chairs were gimmicked or not, but ever since then, there's been a lot of protocols in wrestling. He was on steroids a lot. Benoit was, and obviously other wrestlers were too. Hulk Hogan, that was a whole thing. If anyone knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, it was. It will be a day that nobody will forget. I didn't know anything about it. That was in 2007.
Yeah.
I was maybe 6 or 7 years old, so I couldn't tell you anything about it. But just years later, looking back on it, like I watch all the Raws and SmackDowns all consistently, and Benoit always sticks out. And it sucks
Yes.
that if he wouldn't have did that, or if he did do it, that he probably could have had another world title run in him. And we like what would he be doing today in wrestling? Like I always wonder that. Like what would he be doing? Like would he be? I don't know. Would he be a coach? Would he be? I think he would have ended up in TNA probably with Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that will always be a story that people talk about. Moving on to the next part, there's a lot of journalists in wrestling that uncover a lot of these stories that we're talking about. Maybe not the Benoit stuff, but like Punk and the Elite, or even some of the Vince McMahon stuff was from journalists. There is a lot of journalists that are credible, like Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There's a lot of
Sean Ross Sapp, how are you? How you doing? Always a pleasure to read you. Wade Keller, PWI Torch, always great to read from you. But my favorite is always Aaron Rift of No DQ with my favorite Mr. Tito. And if you guys have never read Tito's columns, Tito's like the god of the IWC, at least for me. And I've often joked that Tito's columns are like a cup of coffee with a warm Shepra blanket on a cold winter day. Because there's just something about his columns that you relate to with the soul. He's got a good knack for the business. Tony Khan, you could hire Tito to help you run AEW, or just hire me and Connor. I've got a mouthpiece, and I can also behave myself when need to, except around certain people.
Yeah, there's a lot of good. My personal favorite is Sean Ross Sapp.
Yeah.
A Fightful and PW Insider are good ones.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the other ones that are not credible. The Wrestling News Observer, Dave Meltzer and David Alvarez. Oh, Brian Alvarez. Ringside News. Man, there's a lot of them that just post stuff. Zero News. Well, sometimes they are right. They did report some things that were true in the beginning of AEW, like signings and stuff. But for me personally, I miss when there wasn't no wrestling news. Like I like no news. Like I would much prefer go back to the World of Wrestling that we had 10 years ago without social media, without technology, and watch the wrestling and actually thinking it's real still. And when someone debuts, it actually be like imagine CM Punk coming back to wrestling. No one knew about it. Like everyone in that building knew he was going to be there when he debuted in AEW. But what about you? Do you like the wrestling news, or do you prefer no news at all and everyone's surprised when they actually see stuff?
I'm just going back to just my old dial-up internet where it went you had to like dial it up, and then you had the dee whatever. And I just, I remember just being on this big box computer that had like the monitor, and you had the monitor was about like this big and about that wide, and then you had and that's where the monitor, or that was like the I should say the modem, and then you had this big hulking monitor, and I think we actually have it in the garage. Kids watching, go ahead and look that one up to see what we used to use back in the day. And just, again, and I'm thinking, back to when the internet first became popular. What was that, like 94, 95, 96? We had AOL. In fact, one of my nephew's first email addresses, and he was born in 85, was an AOL.com email address. And, back then, we didn't have what we have now. We didn't know the outcomes. We didn't have, something called the spoilers. But now it's like wrestling has almost gotten a little too predictable, because you know what's going to happen. You know who's going to win. Like going back to All Out. Okay, we kind of know Monet. We kind of knew Monet was going to win. We kind of knew who I don't even, oh my God, Connor, forgive me. I don't even remember who won from Swerve and Hangman. Stuff like that. We knew the Bucks were going to win. But again, I feel like the internet has ruined pro wrestling to a degree, because why watch the show when you already know what's going to happen? You know someone's going to debut, but then you tune in for them to debut. And then if you're like Tony Khan, you have an announcement announcing an announcement that announced the announcement for the announcement. So then it's like, okay, like take, for example, Mercedes Moné debuts. What was so special about that? We already knew there's nothing special with it.
Yeah, I don't know. Especially with signings in wrestling, Motor City Machine Guns are going to WWE now. We already know.
Yeah.
It just matters when they're going to be there. I would much rather prefer no wrestling news, no Dave Meltzer, no Fightful, and then the only thing good about technology is we get to do all this. Without technology, I wouldn't be able to do this podcast. I wouldn't be able to interview all these people I've interviewed, which there is a positive side to it. But the negative part of it is there's a lot of fans that think that they know wrestling just because they're on the internet, but really they don't know anything. They think that they know more than someone like Triple H, or they know more than people who are in charge, when really they don't know more. They just know how to be a fan. And I liked back then where no one knew who was the boss. Well, I think people knew Vince McMahon was the boss of WWE, but like they didn't know the ins and outs of the wrestling business. Now everyone knows everything. Like they're some of the fans are practically the boys now, especially in AEW.
Hmm.
They signed up. What is his name? Will Washington. Not to say that he's not a good booker. I don't know what his title is, but he's there with AEW. Uh, but yeah, I would much prefer. I would like to just take a time machine and go back. I,
Yeah.
I just like to go back. Uh, Even though I would miss a lot of wrestlers, especially CM Punk. Uh, I would have liked to have seen Andre the Giant wrestle. Like that's always been one of the things I'll say. Like some people will say they want to go back to the Attitude Era. No, I want to see Andre the Giant wrestle.
Hmm.
Like that's just like nostalgic. Uh, but yeah, like nowadays for debuts, I know who's gonna like they blew all that out with Mercedes. Like everybody knew she was gonna be there. Uh, then sometimes the wrestling companies like AEW want it out. Like the photo with Tony and Shane McMahon, I think they probably want. There's no way that they took that picture without wanting that out. Or if they didn't want it out, they did a poor job of telling them not to post it
Hmm.
because in the picture Tony was looking at him. Uh, yeah, I really do miss when wrestling. Well, I will say WWE is not as predictable as AEW because Chad Gable, I really thought he was going to win the Intercontinental Championship. I really did. Like they made it obvious like that he was going to win it, but he didn't win it. Which there is some shock value still in wrestling, more in WWE. I think AEW, not every match is predictable in AEW, but majority of the time it is. Like they did Ricochet and Sammy. I knew Ricochet was going to win that. FTR and Outrunners, FTR is going to win that. Like it's just all like Orange Cassidy always wins. So it's like
Hmm.
to a degree, it's just so like why even what like you said why even watch if you already know what's going to happen?
Right.
You know, yeah, there's a lot of pros and cons to the technology part of wrestling, and I feel like it has ruined wrestling to a degree because I would have preferred just sticking with the call like you call in and stuff like WCW used to have with the
Hmm.
hotline. I'd much prefer that than what we have now. Uh, But going on to the lesser credible people like Dave Meltzer, and it just feels like everything that he reports is false.
And he blocked me, and I'm still blocked according to Twitter.
Yeah, I'm blocked too, and I'm glad. I don't care what he. I don't even know. I don't even know what I said from the block me, but it was probably something to do with Punk or something. Uh, but he's reported a lot of false stuff. He said that uh, William Regal's health was declining. William Regal came out and said it was not true. Obviously, the stuff was Punk.
Hmm.
Uh, Probably the stuff with MJF and Britt Baker because MJF came out and said some of that stuff did not happen. What else? There's a lot of stuff. Oh, Dave Meltzer. Uh, Someone on Reddit 3 years ago had posted a.
Hmm.
Yeah, I got that same thing.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but that same. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the someone on Reddit 3 years ago I posted this AEW TV deal, uh, like chart thing, and it was obviously fake because no one knows that information. But here recently, Dave Meltzer used that same exact thing and used it on his own stuff, and people called him out on it. He just took it down. Basically, like he knew he did. He just pulled something up from 3 years ago.
Hmm.
Why are you digging something up from 3 years ago that obviously isn't true? Like I don't know. I don't know where he gets his information from, but it just feels like everything he does is false.
Well, and he can't handle the truth. I mean, if you, I've seen on Twitter too, where like he's posted something and you let him know, hey, this isn't right, or call him out on something. He can't handle the truth, just like these two. Hold on.
Uh, the the
The Cucamonga beauty queens blocked me. And again, I said something about Punk. I said, so Punk scares you, doesn't he? And that's all I said. I probably said something that I remember saying something where Meltzer blocked me, then he unblocked me, and I said, so still backing the Backyard Beauty Queens, aren't you? And he blocked me again. And that was like, I think 2 years ago. So, and people, when I posted that in groups, people are like, well, you don't understand pro wrestling, or you don't understand this. Yes, actually I do. I've been watching for years, and I know good wrestling when I see it. Again, and I've said this before, Ken, I'll say it again, Cucamonga cannot wrestle. They do spot fest. They're so choreographed, and it's almost like with them, it's like they're carried by their opponents because they can't handle the hard physicality of a match. In fact, one of my signs that I'm going to have that's going to say something about what was it? It was going to say Chicago has pro wrestlers, alleys, draw people who are draws, and people that shouldn't have been fired from AEW. Cucamonga has backyards, fragile egos, people who are not draws who should be fired from AEW. Tell me when I'm telling lies. I'm the realest, most genuine article in a room full of counterfeit bucks.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to get kicked out of the arena, but that's just kind of a sign idea that I have. I mean, I can't take a Punk sign, and you go again to AEW shows, people are still chanting for Punk.
Yeah, I was at Collision in South Haven, Mississippi here recently.
Oh,
it was a few months ago, and it was right after Jack Perry's match. He had a match with Marco Stunt, and when he was going,
I remember that. Okay,
everyone started chanting CM Punk at him. It was I don't know how that didn't make it on TV. I went back, but they must have muted that or something, because that was a loud CM Punk chant. Like basically the entire arena was chanting CM Punk at Jack Perry.
Yeah.
It'll never, like, I don't know. Like sometimes I want to like AEW, but the stuff Tony Khan does, like, you really choose Jack Perry, who's never drawn anything. He's never drawn pay-per-view buys. He's never drawn anything in his entire life. Neither has the Young Bucks. Like, they haven't drawn anything.
They've drawn that.
Yeah, the only thing that carries them is, like, people in the company carried the Young Bucks to make them look like draws. Like, when they first started, I would put Jericho and Moxley up against the Young Bucks. Like, they drew them. Like, you never see the Young Bucks in a top 10 merch sales sign. You never see them. Like, you don't ever see them, like, selling big on anything.
No. And I've been to countless events in Chicago. This is our fourth Dynamite. So this year they're doing Dynamite Thanksgiving with Collision. I don't know what they're doing with Rampage. Maybe they're going to tape it like that same week, but we're talking at least 4 hours in the Wintrust Arena, which is a very fun arena, but it is kind of tricky to get to because it sits very close to, it basically sits, like literally on the corner of like Lakeshore Drive and well, not really Lakeshore Drive, but MLK Drive and Cermak. So it's kind of tricky to get there in Chicago. So if you are, anybody who's going to that event in Chicago, do pay close attention to where you're going, your street signs, but and the way your streets run. But yeah, no, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to go. But then when you go back and watch some of those TNA matches as Generation Me, I remember watching them and I was like, oh, these guys are kind of cool. Okay. And that's basically when they were like Max Buck and Jeremy Buck or something with that. I don't remember. But I'm sitting here looking at them and I go, okay, they look kind of catchy. But then there was just even something about them then that just, there's like no charisma. And I go back and I watch one of those matches and I was like, oh my God. When we did the WrestleManias, back when it was WrestleMania season and we reviewed all the WrestleManias, the one between the Hardys, Edge and Christian, and the Dudleys in that cage. I think was it a cage or was it a ladder in a cage? I don't remember, but
WrestleMania, it was probably the ladder match.
Yeah, it was the ladder match.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there literally as I'm watching this and my nanny kid is sleeping. I'm sitting here watching this, looking at the baby monitor, watching this. I said this before. I was literally visualizing the Bucks in that match. They would have been taken out in 5 minutes by Bubba Ray. Guaranteed.
They couldn't have even handled like the APA. Like if anyone watched JBL's clotheslines, uh, today they're fortunate that at least in AEW and outside of WWE that they can stand out. Really, I think I can name 10 teams that are better than them
Uh-huh.
outside of it, even in AEW. But you know, once you see one Young Bucks match, you've seen all of them. Like
Pretty much.
I've always heard this when I was in trained wrestling. I used to like the Young Bucks to a certain degree. I never they were never my favorite tag team ever.
Yeah.
But there was some that I liked, but I used to always hear people, and I didn't really get it, but they said that there's a difference between wrestlers and gymnastics. Like someone like CM Punk is a wrestler, someone like Christian Cage is a wrestler,
Yeah.
someone like the Young Bucks, or I don't know.
Darby.
Well, Darby does wrestle to a
Yeah.
degree. I would say people like the Young Bucks, or I hate to say his name, Will Ospreay or Ricochet. Those aren't like really. Those are gymnastics. Like those are gymnasts. Like those
Yeah.
aren't like they don't lock up in the ring. You know that they're used to doing flips. Like they're not really doing anything that an actual wrestler would do.
Right.
That's not to discredit them because you don't want everyone to be the same. But to a certain extent, everyone in AEW, at least everyone's the same. Like everyone does the same moves, everyone does
Yeah.
the same stuff, everyone does. But like Ricochet in WWE, he stood out. No one did what he did.
Right.
But I don't know. I really think it's good to have people like Will Ospreay and Ricochet and that, but it just can't be the whole damn show. Like actual true wrestling is a match like CM Punk and Samoa Joe in Ring of Honor.
Right.
That's an actual wrestling match. The Young Bucks versus I don't know some jobber tag team. That 5-star match from Dave Meltzer. That's not a wrestling match. That's just a gymnastic. Like,
Oh, Uncle Dave. Um, yeah, allow me, Connor. So there's like, sorry. So, and these are actual cheer pom poms. So again, there's okay. So basically, one of my former nanny kids, she went to University of Wisconsin. Sorry, Madison. She was a cheerleader, and again, there are certain things that you do when even in cheerleading, you combine gymnastics with it. Who knew that you could do back handsprings in a wrestling ring unless you're from Cucamonga? There we go. And Uncle Dave, what did you give that dismount? I gave it a -5. What about you? Oh, that again, he's being paid
Yeah.
towards them.
See,
There you go.
if I was a wrestler, I would want my matches rated by someone like Brian Danielson
Yeah.
or like an actual wrestler. Dave
Yeah.
Meltzer is not a wrestler. He's not even in the wrestling business. He's just a journalist.
Hmm.
He's just like any other like in basketball. Like there's journalists. They don't play basketball, but they just watch it and they base their opinions on that. They have no experience within
Hmm.
the business. They don't. All they do is see what they see on TV, and they get fed stuff by wrestlers like the Young Bucks who feed them
Hmm.
stuff. Like, that's all they get. But they don't actually know what it takes to be a wrestler. So for me, if I was a wrestler, like especially in WWE, like I'd be going to guys like Randy Orton or Kevin Owens or like
Oh God, yeah.
those are the true people that should rate your matches because they know what a good match
Right.
is. Dave Meltzer doesn't know what a good match is between. I don't know. It's just surprising how Kurt Angle doesn't have a 10-star match on his thing, but the Young Bucks do. I just don't.
And this is Dave Meltzer's only draw right here.
Yeah. We have a few comments. Thanks for watching. I like all
Yeah.
wrestling, but when it comes to the action and storyline,
Uh-huh.
that's what helps keep fans watching. I agree.
Mhm.
Hope you guys can get Joe Hendry. I would love to have Joe Hendry or Josh Alexander on air.
Yeah.
Gilbert, that'd be an easy one to get. Michael, definitely appreciate it, Michael. And I do believe in Joe Hendry. Only when if he's going against someone I don't like, I want to win. I'm not for him. But like with Ethan Page, I didn't believe. Everyone, thanks for watching. Definitely appreciate everyone watching in the comments. But as we're winding down, what do you hope for, or like what would you like to see for wrestling journalists? Like it feels like some of them like to start drama, like they keep doing it to instigate stuff, but like what is something that you think would be beneficial to wrestling with journalists and rumors and stuff?
I think honestly, the less is more. I think less reporting on every little thing or less reporting on debuts. I think that would be good. I think less is more in general because, again, it's kind of like how working, in my line of work as a teacher in a preschool, you get in with directors, become friends with directors, and that's how you get rumors started, and that's how you get false things going on, which is detrimental to the company to a degree. I just feel like, again, if organ like WWE is pretty good, but if Tony Khan specifically, and I'm still trying to figure out TNA, but I think for AEW specifically, if Tony Khan did less talking to the dirt sheets, and obviously we know he's talking to Meltzer because where is Meltzer getting this info from? But if company owners had a standard like saying, yeah, we'll talk about this, but you know what? If they're asked a question, well, I'm sorry, I can't comment on that right now. Something like that. I think that's better because that way it gives us more of an element of surprise as to what's going to happen.
Yeah, I especially with AEW, you know, I loved AEW from day one. I followed them January 1st, 2019 when it was announced. Uh, and I will say my love for AEW has went away a little bit, just because some of the people that I liked left, and some of the people that I really liked I don't use ever, and some people that I liked are leaving now. So, but I will always try to support AEW the most I can. Uh, I thought there will be a point where I won't. I hope it doesn't come to that, but this is the way Tony runs things. I don't know. Sometimes I don't know how those people work there.
Yeah.
I've ripped my hair out. Uh, but I don't want to see AEW ever go out. Uh, I don't feel like people understand this. Like there was someone on Twitter like AEW fails. I don't think there will ever be another alternative.
No.
WCW did, they failed. ECW did, they failed. TNA did it, and they failed. And they're learning from it now. I guess they're on. I won't say they're on life support anymore. I think they're going pretty decent right now. TNA, they're on a steady level, but I don't think we'll ever get a company like AEW or besides another company like WWE, like AEW is. If AEW goes out, at least in this lifetime, I don't think we'll see it again. So I don't really think Tony Khan himself even realizes that he doesn't. I don't know. He just doesn't get the picture. I don't know.
No, absolutely. And my husband and I were just talking about this the other day, like, the plastic bag that Mox put over Danielson or the syringe thing, and how people, I guess, in attendance were yelling, "This is murder." And, I'm sitting here like, wait, what just happened? And again, I was at my sister's that weekend for Labor Day. And so I wasn't watching it, but I was keeping up with it on Twitter. And I'm thinking, good Lord, what just happened? What was the point of this? And it was almost like he took the weapons and used them to get over without realizing. And my husband said it best, he doesn't need to use the weapons to get over when both Swerve and Hangman are already over.
Yeah, yeah. It feels like it's overdone.
Yeah.
Like they overdo it. Or WWE, they don't do that early at all.
No.
But when they do something like that with the match, like I can't remember where it was at, but it was last year where Kevin Owens was busted open really bad and everything. Like when you do it for a story like CM Punk and Drew, I'm pretty sure their match at Bad Blood is gonna be very bloody. Like if we're gonna call a show Bad Blood, there better be some blood on that show.
Yeah.
Like I remember when Vince would do Extreme Rules and there'd be no Extreme on the show. But I feel like when you do it when it matters, then it means something. But AEW does it about every week.
Right.
Something that shouldn't be done at all. Like we had that gauntlet match on Dynamite. I feel like that gauntlet match is very special. It should just be on All In every year. Like that feels like their Royal Rumble or like their Money in the Bank. Like something that's traditionally for AEW, which should only happen one time a year. But I feel like they're going to overdo that.
Mm-hmm.
they'll probably do it with the women tag teams. They're gonna do that so much that people don't want to see it at all out. I mean, at all in.
Right.
Yeah, the Joey Henry is not coming on this podcast as of right now.
I know, I saw that.
Yeah, if he, I would love to have him on here. There's a lot of people that I'm trying to get on. There's one person I am trying to get on that may not be available anymore to get on. At least in October. By October, I won't be able to get him on.
You already know the two people I would love for you to have on this.
Who?
The one person who I named my kitten after, which you guys will meet the kittens next week, and the other person who I'm waiting for him to pop up in WWE, Wardlow and Starks.
Yeah, I've contacted Wardlow a few times. I haven't got anything back, but there's a lot of wrestlers I would love to have on here. There's one wrestler I'm trying to get because by the beginning of October, they'll no longer be able to be on any podcasts ever. We have gotten them on there here before, but they'll be with the company all in Chicago, beginning of October. Can you tell me what Sean Mooney is doing and how hard is? I don't know what he's doing. Well, last I heard, like he was doing some kind of broadcasting with sports and stuff. I don't really know what he does anymore. Sean Mooney. He was always a classic ring announcer. Classic backstage interviewer, like for the early Raws and stuff. But I don't really know what he does these days. Like I don't know when the last time he made an appearance in wrestling. But yeah, we want to thank everyone for watching. I'm not Adam, obviously. I haven't hosted a show in a while. I've done live reactions, but live reactions from hosting a show is very different. But Adam will probably be back next Sunday talking to Lead. He has some stuff come up, so I was able to take over. It was great to have you on, Danny.
Thank you. Yes, it was great to be here.
I thought this is the first time that just me and you have been on here. Normally it's Jason but yeah, it was great to have you on. It's great to have all these discussions.
Yes, thank you.
It's better having discussions like this than just tweeting about it or stuff like that. I mean, it's good to tweet and really get your voice heard, but it's more beneficial to just actually talk to someone about wrestling and stuff. But yeah, we will be back for AZ Canada on Tuesday. The show will be returning with a new lineup of people. Well, not an entire new lineup, but there's a lot of new people going to be coming in. There's a lot of new content we're going to be doing with AZ Canada. So that will be back on Tuesday. We possibly be back for Dynamite, our live reaction. And definitely go check out the Wide World of Wrestling podcast where me and Mr. Jacobs do a lot of WWE content, Raw, SmackDown, NXT. We did Bash in Berlin, so we might do another WWE pay-per-view in the future. We can't do Bad Blood because I'll be there. But Survivor Series.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot you're going. Okay.
Yeah. We do weekly live reactions to Raw, SmackDown, NXT, pay-per-views when we can. So definitely go check out the Wide World of Wrestling podcast and the All Elite Zone right here. Our goal is 1,000 subscribers before the year is over. We're currently 677. I don't know if we'll get there, but every time we do a goal, we end up making it somehow. Last year, we barely got 500. Or no, what was it? It was 500. Yeah, I think it was 500. Our goal was last year, and we barely got it, but we got it. So, yeah. Obviously, go check out the All Elite Zone. All these links in the description below. Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Spotify, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, TikTok. We're on everything. Everything's in the link description below. But yeah, as I said, Adam will probably be back next Sunday for Talking Elite. I'm not sure what the topic will be for next week. I know we're juggling around new topics to do and different stuff. There's a lot of things that we haven't talked about on here. But yeah, we will see you guys next Sunday for Talking Elite.
See ya. Thank you.